Good morning. We are called together this morning in worship. In our opening words, I borrowed the Reverend Kirk Lodeman Copeland. We are called to gather in worship as a beloved community. We are called to set aside distractions and anxieties that we might touch deeper springs and be renewed. We are called to seek and to share comfort for the hurts that afflict us. We are called to desire more love, more justice, and life more abundant. We are called to truth, to mercy, to humility, and to courage. Let us answer that call with the yes of our lives. I invite you to light your chalice at home this morning as we begin our worship together.
Hi everyone, I'm Pam.
I'm Emma.
And we're going to share the chalice lighting with you today. As we light our chalice, we share our church covenant. We promise to listen and learn together with compassion, curiosity, and an open mind. Engage in creating a warm and welcoming community. Work together and beyond our walls to address social and environmental challenges. And with our time, talent, and treasure, support our church and its mission.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Pam Romancic, and my pronouns are she and hers. I serve the Unitarian Church in Hinsdale, Illinois. And I hope that the warmth of all of our hearts gathered here together will help keep everybody warm on this very frigid Sunday morning. Today is one of those days when community is especially important. We've lost a beloved member of our church, and many of us are still in the process of grieving and adjusting to a new reality in which Kathy Salzano's smile and always ready laugh will no longer be part of our church. The poet Yeats reminds us that death informs life. It is not simply the mother of beauty, it is the mother of life itself. For how could we conceive of life if there were no death? And it is only because we conceive of life that we know we must taste it lingeringly, try every flavor and nuance, drink in experience while we can. Death and life are dependent upon each other, like order and chaos, neither concept being possible without the other. So he concludes there should be no fear of death, which is omnipresent and part of life. Welcome it into your arms, for it is but rest. You lie in nature like a heartbeat. We trust that Kathy is resting in the beating heart of life, no longer suffering. She leaves behind a legacy of compassion and joy that we will celebrate on Saturday, February 20th via Zoom. All of the details are on our website, so you can join us. Today, we're going to be talking about something that Kathy actually did amazingly well, which is living our values. We're talking about how we navigate the conflicting obligations that every life entails, how we make choices that create the life that we wish to live. If you enjoyed today's service, I hope you will think about sharing it with someone you know who might appreciate support during this challenging time. Our past services for 2020 can be found on the church's YouTube page, and you can always revisit favorites or find ones that you missed. Now, we have a lot going on, but I have to say, unsurprisingly, today's forest walk has been canceled. We decided that might just be a little too chilly, and when you're in the negative digits. But besides that, our regular weekly meditation group, our Wise Elders group, our breakfast group, the Board of Trustees will meet on Wednesday, and we also will host our monthly Thrive Cafe, which is a place for elder GBLTQ plus folks to gather for support and affirmation. All of those things are still going on because they're all on Zoom where you can be warm. There will also be a values inventory exercise that's led by my daughter, Jenny Romancic, on Tuesday evening. You're going to hear some more about that later in the service. And then coming up In the next weeks, on February 20th, 1st, and 28th, we have a new UU class for anyone new to our faith or new to our church. We focus on our theology, local and national history, and how our church works and how you can get involved. So contact Pam Fodor or myself if you want to sign up for that. I encourage everyone to visit our website, www.hinsdaleunitarian.org, and follow us on social media. February's Touchstone came out last week and can also be found on our website. So if you have news to share or something to submit, please submit it by the 15th for the next March edition. If you're visiting and would like to receive our regular communications, you can leave your information in the chat box or click contact button on the website. After the service, everyone is invited to stay for a brief virtual coffee hour. You have to bring your own coffee though. We split into chat rooms and you can respond to the message, you can get to know new people, or you can catch up and just share our lives that are so far apart right now. The staff at church is working from home until it becomes safer to be there in person. And just a reminder that our phone system is not behaving well, and we're trying to replace it and get it fixed. So sometimes if you call and try to leave a message, the best way to reach us is simply via email, and all the contact information is again on the website. A little later, we'll hold a space for prayer and meditation. If you or someone you know is in need of support, please let us know. You can type your intention in all caps in the chat box, or you can contact me via email or cell phone. Also, if you need help in any way, if you need groceries, if some emergency arises, please also do contact us so that we can help. The church has an emergency relief fund for this very purpose. I want to thank today the people who helped make this service happen. Thanks to Linda Rio, who was our worship associate, and to our regular talented folks, Jamie, Jean, and Suzanne. I'm so grateful that we can, for all you do to support letting us gather like this every Sunday. Now, if you haven't yet lit your chalice, go ahead and do that as we begin with our opening hymn.
Hi, everyone. Today's story is called What Do You Do with a Problem? What are problems for? They challenge us, shape us, push us, and help us to discover how strong and brave and capable we really are. Even though we don't always want them, problems have a way of changing us in unexpected ways. So, what will you do with your problem? Now that's up to you.
Our reading is excerpts from 10 Signs You're Being True to Yourself. It's by Lori Deschen, who's the founder of Tiny Buddha. It's painful and stressful to feel like you're living a lie, like you're hiding how you really feel, saying what you think other people want to hear, and doing things you actually don't want to do just because you think you're supposed to. But sometimes we don't recognize we're doing this. We just know that we feel off or something feels wrong, and we're not sure how to change it. It makes sense that a lot of us struggle with being true to ourselves. From a young age, we're taught to be good, fall in line, and avoid making any waves. To make things even worse, we learn to compare our accomplishments and progress, often at things we don't even really care about, to those of everyone around us. So we learn it's more important to appear successful in relation to others than to feel excited or fulfilled within ourselves. I don't want to be the kind of person who panders to popular opinion or lets other people dictate my choices. I don't want to waste even 1 minute trying to be good enough for others instead of doing what feels good to me. I want to make my own rules, live on my own terms, and be bold, wild, and free. This means peeling away the layers of fear and conditioning and being true to what I believe is right. But it's hard to do this because sometimes those layers are pretty heavy, or they're so transparent we don't even realize they're there. So here are 10 behaviors I have found to help you be true to yourself. 1. You're honest with yourself about what you think, feel, want, and need. 2. You freely share your thoughts and feelings. 3. You honor your needs and say no to requests that conflict with them. 4. Some people like you, some people don't, and you're okay with that. 5. You surround yourself with people who respect and support you just as you are. 6. You focus more on your own values than what society deems acceptable. 7. You listen to your intuition and trust that you know what's best for yourself. 8. You do what feels right for you, even if that means risking approval from the people around you. 9. You allow yourself to change your mind if you recognize you made a choice that wasn't right for you. And 10. You allow yourself to evolve and let go of what you've outgrown. As with all things in life, we each exist on a spectrum in living these principles. And that's okay. The important thing is that we keep coming home to ourselves, and we eventually ask ourselves the hard questions that decide the kind of lives we lead. What am I hiding? What am I lying about? And what truth would set me free? Thus ends the reading.
Good morning. It is a good and yet a hard morning. We have learned that we've lost a beloved member of our community, Kathy Salzano, and I know it is weighing deeply on my heart, as it is on many of your own. So this morning I bring words from the Reverend Susan McGinn, which are simply, breathe with me. Before we begin, I invite you to settle into your chair, to put your feet on the ground, to take a breath in and then a breath out, being grateful for this breath that carries us through this life. Breathe with me this morning. You who feel sorrows calling across the oceans, calling across the room, echoing in the spacious cavern of your chest. Breathe with me. You who wake with the sun, carrying a restlessness to make justice and do mercy. Breathe with me. You who walk humbly, accepting that your gifts for the world will be made by you. You, a soft creature who must pause for meals, for water, for laughter, and for rest. Breathe with me. You who sing by heart songs of peace
and hope and joy and love. You who love this world into a home. You whose hearts are full, whose hearts are grieving. Breathe with me this morning. We now turn to the portion of our service when we share all the gifts that we have been blessed with. When we were able to be gathered together in person, we would have one collection plate Sunday each month that we shared with an organization out in the world. Unfortunately, when we went virtual, that amount that we were able to give dropped off. To try and fix that, we've started sharing the information about our recipient every week, but still only share what you designate in your gift to be shared with that group. Thank you for your patience as we figure out how to do the best we can during this pandemic. This month's recipient is really important at this time because we're offering our gifts to the Third Unitarian pop-up pantry. Third Unitarian Church, which is in the Austin neighborhood in Chicago, realized early on that so many people in their community needed help. And so they started collecting funds to be able to help those people in their neighborhood. So if you are able to donate, you can go on our website and click on the donate button, or you can send your check into the church at 17 West Maple Street, Hinsdale 60521, and simply write February or Third Unitarian Pop-Up Pantry in your memo line. And we'll make sure that we can help to eradicate food insecurity as much as possible. Thank you so much for your generosity.
Hi, my name is Michael Caldy from Third Unitarian Church in Chicago, and I wanted to talk to you briefly today about our pop-up pantry in Austin on the west side. And I've only been a member at Third Unitarian Church for about a year now, but this social action has been a big part of our experience in the church, and it's been a great addition to worship there. So the pop-up pantry was just an initiative that was started by a couple of members during COVID-19 when we saw there was just an extreme need for food and for assistance for all sorts of folks. And we wanted to give back to this community that's given us so much, where our building is in Chicago. And so we started the pantry in June of 2020, and it was a choice pantry for people to come up and get whatever food they wanted, but we didn't just serve food as well. It's a big priority for us to also give out household items that are hard for people to get. For example, diapers, we had homemade masks, cleaning supplies, light bulbs, and tampons, pads, all these sorts of items beyond food that people might have trouble getting and need to get by week to week. So as summer moved to fall, we stopped doing the pantry in person. It got too cold, and we moved over the winter to just doing giveaways and reaching out to our neighbors to be able to pack bags for them and give them the food that they need, which we did over the holidays. And this effort now into 2021, we are looking towards relaunching in the spring, and we could use as much of your support as you can manage to get that going again. We've partnered with a local church to work on this effort, and we've been learning from our neighbors and our community throughout the way. So any support you can give would be enormously helpful, and I'm excited to get the Choice Pantry back up and running once it gets warmer. Thank you.
Hello, I'm David Mrazek, serving on the board of the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale. I grew up coming to this church, moved away for around 20 years, then gradually returned after moving back to the area. It's been fascinating to see how the congregation and its leadership has changed during that time. I love how we embrace social justice and environmental issues head on, continue to grow spiritually, each in our own way, and teach our children values that will sustain them with meaning and purpose. This is a time in our service where we acknowledge and support the good work and good trouble our congregation engages in. To help keep this amazing church community evolving into the future, go to our website at hinsdaleunitarian.org and scroll down to the donate button, or send a check to the church office at 17 West Maple Street in Hinsdale. Whatever you can give is greatly appreciated. Now I invite you to say our offering words together. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, with the people around us, and with all the world. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Romancic and I teach workshops on developing emotional intelligence. And one of the first things that we often talk about, and one of my favorite things to talk about, is learning how to identify your values. So when we talk about values, we're talking about the things in your lives that make you feel like you. The things that give you energy, the things that you feel drawn to. Sometimes they're the things that really set you apart from other people. And so when we talk about values, we can be talking about traditional values like honesty and integrity. Integrity is definitely one of my values. And if you know my mother, you know where I get that. But we also can talk about anything in your life that you feel drawn to, and again, that makes you feel like you. So I know a lot of people who consider music as one of their values, because if they're not playing music or they're not listening to music in some capacity on the regular, then they don't quite feel like themselves. And music isn't necessarily what we would call a traditional value, right? So when we learn how to identify our values, they can really anchor us and ground us, and so we can learn how to make space for these things in our lives so that we can be getting this energy on a more regular basis. It also really, really helps us when life throws those big waves our way that we aren't expecting, that we can turn back to, like, what do I know that I really need and what do I really care about, so that I can make sure to have that in my life. So the first time I did like a real deep dive around finding my own values, I ended up with my top 3 values being personal growth, silliness, and developing relationships, personal relationships. And so I was working at a job that I really didn't like, where it had a very toxic culture, and I wasn't having a great time. And I was still very new, so I had been given a mentor, but he wasn't really helping me in any way. So I turned to my values, and I was like, well, personal growth is super important to me. So I happened to be sitting next to a director of strategy. So I asked him, hey, would you be willing to be my mentor? Could I work on a project with you? And he happened to say yes. So it really ticked my box around growth, because I had someone who was actually invested in my growth and my learning, and that really helped a lot in that space. What was the next one? Oh, relationships was my second one. And so I started just asking a new person to lunch every day. And it kind of culminated in a bunch of people going and sitting outside together to have lunch in the grass. And it ended up being something that people looked forward to. And it really helped me. And I actually made a couple of very good friends that way. And then the third thing, for silliness, I ended up bringing in these little like eraser animal stackers that you could they're like a little balancing thing that you tried to stack them up, and I would just leave them on people's desk and be like, give it a shot. And at first they were like, why? And I was like, I don't know, because it's fun. And that became an office thing where people were setting them up and taking pictures of the different ways that they set them up and putting them in our Slack group communication channel. And so it was just something light and silly, not work related, but that allowed us to create connection. And so I didn't ultimately stay in that job for all that long, but it really helped make things a lot easier when I could recognize here are things that are really important to me, that make me feel like me. So I can take ownership of that, and I can find ways to bring that into my life. So I believe I'll be meeting with you all on Tuesday. So if you would like to do an activity around identifying your values and talk a little bit more about this and ask me any questions, come to that meeting, bring a piece of paper and Post-its, or you can just cut a piece of paper into 12 pieces and a pen or a pencil, and I look forward to talking to you then. Bye.
People, you know what time it is? Decision time. So, you got a decision to make. Don't worry. You make decisions all the time. Like what to eat, what to buy, what to wear, how to spend your time, who to spend your time with, what you're gonna say, how you're gonna say it, whether or not you put on the dinosaur costume and skate through town. Hey, it's an option, and I'm proud of it. Researchers found this. We make thousands of choices each day. Thousands of them. In fact, the more responsibilities that you have, the more choices you have to make. There's options all up in your face all the time. And on top of all this, with each choice comes a consequence. Every choice that you make leads to something good or not so good. Like that old saying, everything happens for a reason. Sometimes that reason is you ate a whole roll of Oreos in one sitting. If you excuse me, I gotta take a break. Okay, I'm back. Ugh, that was a bad decision. If you're watching this video, that means you're awesome. Congrats, you're awesome. How will you make awesome choices? Here's a few choices for how you can make choices. You could be impulsive. Don't even think about it. Just mindlessly point, pick, and do whatever. Disclaimer, I don't recommend this choice for making choices. Now you can do it, but it'll lead to mixed results. It's especially dangerous while picking your wardrobe or defusing a bomb. Can't be impulsive then. Another choice you have when making choices, don't do anything. This is a choice to not make any choices, which is a poor choice. Just stand there, wait, do nothing. It's an option, it's always an option. You could say nothing, do nothing, but fair warning, then you'll be nothing. Just saying. Another choice for how you can make a choice. Just be a follower. Yeah, just do what everyone else is doing. When you're a follower, you don't really have to think. It's really simple. Just to look around, see what everyone else is doing. Is everyone just complaining about something? You can do that too. Is everyone doing what everyone else is doing? You can do that too. Is everyone eating an entire row of Oreos in one sitting? Just do that. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm back. I have to make better choices. So being a follower, you can make that choice. It's just a really big problem with that. The world needs you. So how's about this? Focus on being someone worth following. I like that choice. Another choice how you can make your choices, be thoughtful. Warning, this requires thinking. It takes some thought to be thoughtful. But thinking, that's something we should do more often. Think about, what do I care about? What's important to me? What kind of world do I want to live in? Do my choices help create that world? I want to live in a world with more dancing. So what do? A little bit of dancing. The choices you make help make the world. All of us together make big choices sometimes too. Like we all try to come together and make a big decision. Like in an election. Who will lead our country? That's a big decision. Whatever happens there, there's something that you can't forget. Just how powerful you are. There are no small people and there are no small choices. You're making big choices every single day. And they make a big difference. Whether you're president in the big fancy Oval Office, or not the president, or just a cable with a cam phone and some cardboard. Your choices matter on election day and every single day. Real change happens right in your backyard. The little decisions that you think are little are actually a really big deal. The choices we make our lives. In your life, it's an awesome one. Make the kind of choices that are worthy of that awesome life.
Hi, everybody. Making choices that are worth your awesome life. We're talking about all kinds of different ways that we figure out how to live into the lives that we want to live. Now, for my making decisions, I'm a person that really needs to sit with something, to let it roll around in my head. My process actually has more to do with folding clothes or painting a room or even taking a nap that lets me trust my inner guidance system than in weighing all the facts. But that doesn't mean that I ignore the facts. I spend a lot of time gathering information. I weigh sources, I look for corroboration, I imagine corollaries to the things that I'm thinking about. And because I do all of this, the decisions I make end up creating the whole of my life, being part of the whole of my life. In his seminal work, Let Your Life Speak, Parker Palmer says, we are exploring together. We are cultivating a garden together, backs to the sun. The question is a hoe in our hands, and we are digging beneath the hard and crusty surface of the rich humus of our lives. End quote. It's a beautiful image. All of us digging beneath the crusty surface and the rich humus of our lives. Not too long ago, somebody said to me, you're always talking about living your values, but what do you mean by that? How do you live your values? I love the question because it really got me to dig into it. What do I mean? So after napping and showering and rolling it around in my head, these are some of the ideas I came up with. Living my values means that anyone looking at me from the outside would be able to see what is important to me by the choices I've made and continue to make. Integrity is one of my highest values, which is why the past few political years have made my head want to explode. Because one of the most infuriating parts has been to me all of those people who call themselves Christians and yet support a person whose every choice has been antithetical to my understanding of what Jesus taught. I usually do not name myself a Christian because of this very public disconnect between what I understand Jesus to exemplify and how some Christians follow their faith, often the loudest ones who call themselves Christians. I consider myself a follower of that Jewish rabbi, Jesus of Nazareth, but I find acting on those teachings, living his example, much easier in my Unitarian Universalist faith, as crazy as that might sound. The values that I learned from Jesus include loving the Lord your God with your whole heart and mind and soul, and then loving your neighbor as yourself. To me, this does not mean that I believe in an ancient or parochial vision of God, a God who judges like humans do, or who humanly elevates one group of people over another, or who holds the same prejudice and intolerance of other people that people with closed minds and self-righteous belief systems might. The God I love with my whole heart is one beyond my understanding or my control. G-O-D is shorthand for an isness, a life force in which I live and breathe and have my being, but cannot fit into anyone's neat little box. The God I love is bigger than life, bigger than love itself. It is the source of everything and the place to which everything returns. You know, in reality, that part of Jesus' teaching is easy. The second part, which feels like a throwaway, and love your neighbor as yourself, is where it really gets challenging. Because first, you have to love yourself. You have to remember the divinity out of which everything emerges, including you. Let go of external voices of judgment, of not enoughness, of failure for fitting to someone else's mold. Parker Palmer brings some wisdom here as well when he writes, self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer others. It feels hard, believing that who you are in this very moment and how you engage with the world is very good. And then not only do you have to believe that you and I are good, we have to believe in ourselves. We have to love other people in the exact same way, not judging, not finding fault, not seeing anyone as less than. Ooh, that's really hard. That's a lifetime of work. And you know, I fail at it every single day. I mean, look at me today, judging perfectly well-intentioned people for not being good enough followers of Jesus because they're judgmental. Pretty ludicrous, no? What I really want to do is to live that value myself. I want to live a life where people look at my words and my actions and my relationships and recognize a follower of Jesus' teaching, even if I never say his name. Saying, I believe, and then acting in a way that demonstrates something against that belief does not have the integrity that I value. Now, that's pretty big picture stuff. Living our values can be much more mundane and down to earth, like many of Jenny's examples of how we can just identify what's important to us, what makes us us, and then live that in the world. But it's still hard work, because while I might choose lofty and hard to attain values, even if I name loving my neighbor as myself, life offers us so many opportunities to get it wrong. Does claiming that I love my neighbor as myself mean that I should pick up that homeless person I see at the side of the road and bring them home with me? I don't do that. Does it mean that I give 10, 15, 20% of my income away every year out of a sense of connection and responsibility to the wider world? Maybe. Does it mean spending all my time and energy marching against injustice in the world? It could. There are many different ways to make real those things that I say I value. But you know, what it does require of me is that I do the really hard work of defining my values and figuring out how they fit together in an order that will allow me to live them as best I can. Because if I haven't thought through things ahead of time, I will constantly be presented by choices where one value that I have might compete against another. Let me offer a simple example. For a long time, I was a vegetarian, and I still aspire to it, but I can't say that I make it all the way there. But when I was, I knew that I valued not eating meat, but I also valued relationship and appreciating hospitality. So if someone I knew invited me to dinner and made chicken as the main course, I would have to decide whether to eat the chicken, affirming my value of relationship and hospitality, or not eat the chicken and maintain my identity as a vegetarian. By thinking it through ahead of time, I decided that I valued hospitality over vegetarianism. And when confronted with that choice, I didn't have to feel the pull between the two. I know many people would make a different choice because there's not a right or wrong answer. All there is clarity. Like with that homeless person on the side of the road, I have to admit that I value safety. And I know that many homeless people are in that situation because of mental illness or addiction issues. And while I have given rides to strangers over the years, at my age, I'm taking a more cautious approach. Karen and I now keep a bag of dollar bills and change in the car door, along with a bunch of protein bars, and in the summertime, we take some water. And when I get to the top of a highway ramp and meet a bedraggled human being holding a handwritten sign, I give him a handful of bills and a bar and greet them as a fellow human being. Is it enough? I don't know. But it's the solution that I've come up with to be able to uphold the worth and dignity of someone, as well as valuing my value of safety and of our persons. It's an imperfect compromise and might just be a sap on my conscience, but in weighing values, it's what feels okay right now. There are so many places in our lives where the things we value might compete against one another. I recognize those conflicts when I know I have to choose something and I feel this anxiety rising in my chest. It's an anxiety I used to feel in my first marriage when my ex demanded my full attention, but I felt the pull to go to my children first. My faith of origin taught very clearly that it was my duty was to my husband, that a strong relationship between parents was the best thing for the children. And at the same time, it didn't feel right. And eventually, doing my own work and really working through things, I realized what was wrong. A strong relationship is good, but it rests on the premise that both people in the relationship are healthy and mentally able to give to the children what is needed. The one I was in was not, and I came to believe that it was my responsibility was to my children first. Life is complicated, which is why we can't just rest on teachings and wisdom from the past, or on what the world around us tells us is right. We each have to do the hard work of discerning what is right in this particular moment, in this particular place for me. Some of you may remember a scene from the TV show The Good Place, where the judge in charge has gone down to earth to figure out why no one is making it into heaven anymore. She discovers that life has become so complicated that there are 1,000 unintended consequences to even the simplest action. Buying roses in order to say I love you to someone may end up getting negative points on their point system because the roses had been flown in unbeknownst to the purchaser from Venezuela and have a huge carbon footprint. One of my favorite lines in the show was when the character Ellen says, "There's this chicken sandwich that's delicious, but if you eat it, it means you hate gay people." And the judge has to agree, it is delicious. We already know that we can do a lot of damage in the world unaware. And it's hard to see what impact our actions have, even when we're doing our very best. But what we can do is to be clear about our values, about our principles, about our ideals, and really look at how they fit together. You heard Jenny earlier talking about doing a values inventory. Full disclosure, I'm really proud of her. And she's willing to do it with anyone who wants to join her on Zoom on Tuesday at 5 p.m. The link to the meeting is in news and notes, and it's on the website. A few years ago, Jenny helped take Karen and me do a stock of our values. And it's both challenging and enlightening, and it's actually fun. When we did it, I came up with very lofty ideals of integrity and honesty and compassion and kindness, because of course, those are the things I try to live by. But because I've been wrestling with it for a while now, I realize that there are always hidden values that I hold, even if I'm not aware of them. So I value comfort. I value security. I value being seen as a good human being. And sometimes those values conflict with the ones that I think are more important. But knowing this, wrestling with all of it, allows me to make real choices instead of speaking one way and living another. It helps me to think about what I value and what's important to me, and to think about it a little bit ahead of time if you're going to be going in and doing this values inventory. You can look ahead, you can Google values lists, and there are hundreds to choose from. And of course, you can always do this exercise by yourself, but Jenny makes it a little bit more fun. And I, like my daughter, value silliness and fun as well. Parker Palmer famously said, "Before I can tell my life what I want to do with it, I must listen to my life telling me who I am." Discerning the principles, the values that I hold, understanding my internal commitments, and being clear about how my actions impact those ideals and impact the people around me, knowing all of that, wrestling with all of that, helps me to live a life that is full and rich and has that integrity that I know I value. Letting our lives speak cuts through confusion, anxiety, and angst. And who wouldn't want that? Amen, and blessed be.
This reading is by Karen Round, and it's called Opening the Door of Mercy. She writes, one afternoon, a couple of summers ago, just as the sky was darkening, a woman I didn't know stood sagging on our threshold, holding the screen door open. I saw the silhouette of her head through the window. No, she answered me. She was not all right. She didn't feel well at all. So I wondered, what was I supposed to do now? This moment of decision had happened to me before. For almost 19 years, we've lived here at the foot of a highway exit ramp. Our address is blandly suburban, but the highway often leads exhausted cars onto our curb. Lately, cell phones have diminished the flow, but we've met many people in distress. More diverse than our own community, these travelers have all asked for little things, such as the phone, a glass of water, or simply directions. All have been strangers to me. Ours is a cynical and suspicious time. Conventional wisdom advises that to act as a good Samaritan is to be naive and to risk terrible consequences. I believe repeatedly rejecting others who need help endangers me too. I'd rather risk my physical safety than my peace of mind. I'd rather live my life acting out of mercy than save it by living in fear and hostility. So, here where we live on that afternoon one summer, when the woman was sinking like the sun on my front porch, I made a choice. I opened the door. Thus ends the reading.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world.
We have words now by the Reverend Ma Teresa Agustillo Gallardo. Some came here to be blessed with answers in a tumultuous world. Let us hope too, however, that many of us have been blessed with questions to direct us with a clarity of mind to steer our logic towards kindness and justice always. Blessed be.